Welcome to the Child-Free Wealth Podcast, hosted by Bree and Dr. J, Certified Financial Planner. Here we discuss life and finances as it relates to being child-free. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please consult your advisor before implementing any ideas heard on this podcast. Hello, Child-Free Wealth listeners. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking with two incredible women who are living life outside of the U.S. First up, I'm going to be talking to Maggie. She is an expat living in Portugal. And then after that, I'm going to be talking with Sibu, and she is a digital nomad who 20 years ago decided to leave the U.S. and to start exploring the world. And so first up, I'm going to have Maggie go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, hello. I am so excited to be on this panel and chat. I know that my life over in Portugal is something people reach out to me about all the time. Let's give you a little bit about me, and we'll go into more about Portugal and that whole transition. So my name is Maggie Dickens. I'm founder of Unapologetically Childfree. I'm also a therapist and have a private practice, cathartic counseling and coaching. And my whole approach is to just call BS on the idea that a woman's worth is tied to motherhood or any of these other societal shoulds. I spend my day helping women without kids burn that old script and write a life that's just fully their own, breaking the patterns that someone else told them that they were supposed to follow. And I'm luckily able to do that and run both of these businesses all the way from Lisbon, Portugal.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So you've been in Portugal, you've been living there. What was that moment for you that decided, okay, we're going to move to Portugal? This is it.
Well, I have thought about moving out of the United States probably since I even knew that was an option. So middle school, high school, I even thought about applying to graduate schools in the UK. And then I got into graduate school in my home state of North Carolina. And so I just went there because it was cheaper and a little bit easier and all of those things. And so making the leap to Portugal was partially the end of a relationship at the time that just had me kind of like reeling. And the fact that I had this like moment of, what am I doing? Why am I doing the same thing over and over when I keep lusting after, for lack of a better term, lusting after something more? And so I really kind of just dug into what I talk to my clients about, which is just like attuning to who I am and what I want, and then aligning with that person. And so I made a spreadsheet and I did pros and cons and the money and the wants and all of that. And a friend of mine who lives here part-time was like, Portugal's not on your list though. Why is it not? And so we started talking about it, and it just kind of rose in the rankings until I made it here.
I love that you made a spreadsheet about it because that's very analytical. And then if you read your website, it's so fun because you have all the different emojis. You're like, I am a tornado emoji next to all of that. And the way that you have things bolded.
Yeah.
It's just two very different, like very creative. And then you're talking about, actually, I took a spreadsheet and analyzed all of it. So,
well, it's part of like the spreadsheet is what kind of like flattens the tornado. I have ADHD. I also am someone who is like fully embracing that a person gets to look and be however they want. So some of my chaos really just has to be like ironed out on paper or on a spreadsheet, or else really I am that tornado. And it's like, which direction are you going? I'm like, I don't know. Am I moving? I don't know.
That's fair. And it's a good way to look at it. And it's a good self-awareness too, to say, this is how I need to go ahead and approach it in order for me to make a decision that feels good and is in line with what I want long term.
Yeah.
So you made the spreadsheet, you looked at all the pros and cons. Did you have multiple countries on the spreadsheet? And that was...
I did.
Was it like a separate spreadsheet for every country, or was it just...
No, because I have grand plans of like spreadsheeting with the best of them, but it always ends up being like half done because then I get distracted and I'm just like, I have enough information. So it was really just one spreadsheet that was the list of countries. Most of them were Mexico and Central America. And then Portugal kind of came in. And it was just comparing a lot of things that came down to quality of life. So food, the accessibility. I'm a big city person. I'm kind of a country girl, grew up in the country, got out of there as fast as I could, never looked back. Things like cost of living, I had a hard line of not increasing the amount of money that went out of my pocket in order to live in said place. I was okay staying kind of net neutral, but I definitely could not increase. So places like the UK was automatically out because I would have lived in London, and that's financially was not an option. So those were kind of the things that went down. There were other pieces of information too, like ease of living there as an expat / immigrant. I hadn't even thought about myself as an immigrant at the time. I was thinking of myself strictly in that expat way of thinking. And so like, how long can I stay there visa free? You know, how does the country look at border jumping and things like that to like reactivate visas, and just all of those things. I also have 3 dogs. So there was that piece too.
Hey, Child-Free Wealth listeners, it's Bree. I highly encourage you to schedule a Child-Free Wealth checkup. During this time, you're going to get a couple of forms to fill out that include your life and financial plan. We'll review them, and then we're going to have a meeting and go through them with you. We're going to give you some advice and things to work on and talk through things to make your finances simpler so your life can be amazing. You can schedule yours by going to our website, childfreewealth.com, and clicking the Schedule Now button. 3 dogs would make it a little bit challenging because you're not just yourself to move then.
Yeah.
So you looked at all of these things, went through it, and then Portugal ended up being the winner. Mm-hmm. How long have you been there now?
Just over 2 years. I think my 2-year residency just expired here. So now I'm in this like holding pattern as the immigration process is what it is. And just over 2 years.
Okay. You've been there 2 years. You're going through the immigration process. Was the initial immigration process pretty easy? Was it a little bit more difficult? How did that look?
It is convoluted. It is a lot of pieces, but I wouldn't say that it's hard. I wouldn't say that it is necessarily complicated. It is just convoluted. It makes no sense in some ways. And this is where the spreadsheet came back out, like making sure you have all of your paperwork in a row. I didn't use a lawyer. A lot of people use a lawyer. I tell people who consult with me on the moving process here to Portugal that it's really how complicated is your move? Do you have kids? Are you buying a property? Are you starting a business here? And do you have more time or do you have more money? And that's going to decide whether or not that you use a lawyer versus the DIY. And I DIY'd myself. And then also my now fiance, I DIY'd his process over here too.
Okay. When you say that, because you're also a therapist too, did you have to start the business in Portugal and get that started there? Or is it still kind of US based? What does that look like?
My entire business, both of my businesses, Unapologetically Childfree and Cathartic Counseling, are based in Texas. I did not set up a business entity here in Portugal. I do not see clients, whether virtually or in person, here in Portugal. I see them everywhere else in the world, in all of the countries of the world except for Portugal.
Okay, so that would make it so you don't have to set the business up and establish there then.
Yes.
Gotcha. Just trying to think through, like, how difficult is it for some people? Because you say I DIY'd it, and I go, there's not a time in my life where I would ever DIY any of that. I don't even like to file my own taxes. I will pay some. So it's fun, too, because it also varies by personality. What is your personality? What are the things you enjoy doing? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things that we can see this, and people are going to go, let's do a lawyer. But if you've got the grit and the desire to DIY it, you sure can. I've been in Portugal a little over 2 years now. You've obviously experienced quite a bit of things there. Mm-hmm. What was the most surprising thing when you first came?
Well, when I first came, I was really simply, this is hard because this is 2 years later. When I first got here, I think the biggest shock for me was how at ease I felt immediately. So like my nervous system was so at rest here and continues to just feel really settled versus being in the States. I was really on that kind of high, buzzy nervous system, kind of fully activated a lot of the time, even when I was supposed to be quote unquote at rest. I think that was one of the biggest pieces. It also took me about 6 to 7 months to stop feeling like I was on vacation. Even though I was working.
Gotcha.
It still felt like I was kind of on a working holiday.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And that was going to be something I wondered too, like how long until it kind of felt normal and like you're living there now. It's because I get that you can feel like you're on vacation when you're first moving somewhere. Over the past 2 years then, so not just in the first bit of time, but over the past 2 years, what have been some of the really big highlights that you would have never had you stayed in the US?
My whole life has changed. Everything. I think for me, the biggest piece is the growth of Unapologetically Childfree. The meetup scene here in Lisbon is massive. So actually using that website and that platform is such commonplace here in Lisbon that when I decided to take Unapologetically Childfree and make it in person and do in-person events here in Portugal, it has taken off. And the stuff that I was doing in Houston and that I was doing in the States was not as, I don't know, it just didn't do the same thing. It just wasn't as successful, I guess, in terms of like the meetup. So there would be 5 or 6 people there in the States, whereas here, I think our first picnic, we had over 40 people. The meetup group itself, like the actual platform, there's over 1,000 people who are on just subscribed to that meetup. We have that we go to, there's 2 every single month, and we at least have 10 or 15 people, but sometimes we've had just so much more. So I think that's one of the biggest pieces is that here, the child-free community has just been, I think we all feel it. We feel this like draw to each other in a way that I didn't necessarily notice in a city like Houston where everybody is in, like it's so big and everybody's in their own little pockets and stays in their own little pockets.
Well, that plays to the architecture of how we've designed cities in the US and the urban sprawl that's happened. There are people everywhere now versus if Portugal, it's walkable. You can go different places depending on where you are. It makes it easier to meet up versus going and saying, oh, I want to go to this event, but I have to spend 20 minutes in traffic to get there. 20 minutes on a light day, maybe an hour or more too. So,
and pay a ton for parking. And if you are someone who enjoys an alcoholic beverage, now you are not driving, you are paying for a rideshare service or something like that. And so costs typically can, there can be that cost prohibitiveness when it comes to hanging out with people. Especially, I find that there is really a community feel here in Lisbon. And I think that might be that Southern European culture, even though the vast majority of people in the Unapologetically Child-Free community here are not from Portugal. We've lived here long enough that we have that vibe. And in order to have a successful community, you have to be a good community member yourself. We can't expect there to be, quote unquote, a village around us if we aren't a good, quote unquote, villager. And that, I think, has been one of the biggest differences that I see here than I did in the States. And it's not from a lack of wanting in the States. It really is from just how big the freaking country is. And you can have friends that are literally an hour and a half away from you, but you live in the same quote unquote city or, somewhere close. My friends in the States, literally from Seattle to Miami, that was the spread of my friends. So it wasn't like if someone was going through a hard time, I was getting in my car and, driving over with a pint of ice cream. That just wasn't going to be feasible.
Well, it is so much more spread out, like you're saying, and I totally get that. Over the weekend, I was with 3 different friends, and all over the place where they live, everybody was like an hour in different directions, and then on the phone with more friends in different states. It's just, it is very spread out. When you're so right, you can't just walk over with a pint of ice cream and say, hey, like, today really sucked, let's get through this together. But you mentioned to be a village, you have to be a good villager. And I could talk about that forever. It's been my side project of just reading and learning and really trying to emphasize that. Because sometimes to be a good villager, it's going to be inconvenient for you. And that can be really hard, but it makes it even more difficult living where you have to drive everywhere. And it's not like we can walk down the street to some friends, but you're really driving to see most people. And if I could just get rid of cars and still public transportation, that would be fantastic.
Oh, so amazing.
Talk to me about that. Because, do you even drive a car anymore?
No, I sold my car, which was It was kind of bittersweet because it wasn't a good financial purchase because it was, one of those fancy cars that immediately depreciates in half its value in 4 minutes. But it was a treat for myself when I paid off my student loans. And so that was kind of a bittersweet moment to get rid of, her name was Pearl, to get rid of Pearl. And I haven't looked back, to be quite honest, for a couple of reasons. One, financially, cars are dumb. They're just dumb.
Yes.
And there's so much more planning involved. I have one set of friends, and they have a car, and I never see them use it. They only use it when they're driving out of Lisbon. They are going about Lisbon. We're using either ride shares or public transit. I've heard from people who are from Europe or who have lived in other places in Europe, and they say that the public transit here in Lisbon is not amazing or not that great, or any of these kind of derogatory statements or, complaints about it. And I'm like, it gets me to where I want to go. Like, the bus system is still a bus system. Like, it's traffic dependent and all of that. I'm an 8-minute walk from a train system. So like long multi-hour trains and a metro. There's buses right there at that same station. You can't beat it because of just, I'm in the middle of a city that if you were to take a car, it takes you just as long as with public transit. I'm also really climate change conscious as much as I'm able to be. And I just always look around and I'm like, wow, there's 20 people just on this car of the metro or whatever. And it's like, we're all going to the same place. And so we're at least not adding to, or at least, I don't know if that's actually true. I don't know the research on public transit and climate change, but it feels good. So I go with it.
I mean, not only does it feel good, but also you're right, there can be 20 people and you get places so much faster. Otherwise, look at any traffic line in the US, and most of the time it's 1, maybe 2 people, maybe 3 or 4, but that seems to be rare, just sitting in traffic. Everybody's there. Also, if more people used public transport, I think my road rage would be decreased because less people would be texting and driving.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I will say 2 things. Whenever I went to a virtual practice versus being on, like, seeing people in person prior to COVID, I definitely, I don't listen to podcasts anymore. And so I'm a little bit out of touch there. It's a loud metro because it's older, so I can't really listen to my audiobooks and stuff. But I talk to my clients a lot about this, is like, we're so overstimulated. And this kind of goes to that nervous system regulation I was talking about, is like, the amount of time now, because I'm just sitting waiting on to go from this stop to this stop to this stop on the metro, I'm just sitting and I'm learning to be bored again. I'm not very good at it, but I'm learning to be bored again.
It's hard.
Oh, it's so hard. And we want to pull out our phones. I also find that when I'm walking the dogs or just walking to see some friends or something like that, I do my best to not necessarily head down full airport walk speed. Let's slow it down. Let's take advantage of the views. Lisbon's so beautiful, and it just has that old world feel. And that in itself is something that is a reminder to say, I don't have to have my AirPods in all the time. I don't have to be on WhatsApp all the time or on social media all the time. It's a work in progress to not be on my phone as much, or to not, and to accept boredom. But I think that the country has been really helpful with that.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you bring that up and mention that, and that the country itself helps with that, because you're right. I don't think there's anything wrong with being on your phone, but it's something I've this year been really intentional of trying to get off of it too, and trying to not listen to things all the time. I just have a real big thing against anybody when they're texting and driving, because it's so dangerous. I like the public transport because it's okay, if you're going to be on your phone, be on your phone. You can do that. But I like the idea too of practicing being bored, practicing being in quiet and not having any input, and just sitting there and sitting with your thoughts, which can be kind of scary too, just to sit there.
Because then you have to sit with yourself. And like sometimes we're not like super like fond of ourselves, or we've got all of these like patterns and stuff. I know a lot of people who like consult with me to talk about moving to Portugal, or even just some of my therapy and coaching clients who are like, how did you make this move? You know, I'm a pretty transparent person with the people I work with. And I tell people that any major decision that you're making, including moving across town or moving across the world, is, are you running away from something, or are you running towards something? And not that one is necessarily better than the other. One is easier in the long run than the other. But sometimes we have to just pay attention. Like if I can't sit with myself, if I'm struggling to sit in quiet, I'm struggling to sit with my own thoughts, I'm struggling to sit in my own feelings, then I'm going to have that same problem if I go across town, or I buy that new thing, or I'm in a new country or something like that. There's a saying in the therapeutic world, wherever you go, there you are. When people are looking to make big changes, geographics can help a lot. Like the city has really helped my nervous system, but I've also been present enough to let it. I'm doing my best to adapt and to assimilate into how the culture is here versus just continuing to have that hustle culture that is ingrained in me. Sometimes I'm successful at that, and sometimes I'm not. We're all a work in progress.
No, and that's totally fair. And just so listeners know, on your website, when you write hustle culture, you have CULT, so cult, bolded in that. And I think I was reading that and I just laughed. I was like, this is fantastic. Getting away from that, and now you're trying to avoid hustle culture. What does your time look like? Are you traveling a bunch of other countries? We often hear about many people who move to Europe. Are you saying, no, I'm taking nice slow weekends? Just what does everyday life look like for you?
I'm a homebody and I'm very introverted, even though it doesn't look like that online. I mask really well. I have traveled more than I normally do. With dogs, it's a little bit harder. But we do travel a lot more. Since I've moved here, I've been to Morocco and Germany. I've been to the UK like 4 times because I have friends who live there. I've been to Paris a couple times because I have friends that live there. I've been to Hungary. So yes, it's not something I'm doing weekly or something like that. But I will say that aside from just the super busy times in my life, like July, it's insanely busy. And I look like I was in the States, just working all the time. It's really slow mornings. Like I wake up without an alarm. Aside from the dogs. The dogs wake me up and then I go back to sleep. And it's slow. It's slow. I see my clients on my own schedule, take a long walk. I would probably have like one thing at least weekdays that we do with friends. And our weekends are always filled with picnics or taking a walk by the river or dinners or, stuff like that. It's beach season. A lot of people are taking the train. I haven't even been to the beach yet, but it's also stupid hot here. So yeah, I would say it's not your European vacation or your European retirement, but it's also not the same where like I feel this pressure of clocking in, quote unquote, at 8 a.m. and filling my time in front of a computer until 5 p.m. just for the sake of doing it. It's definitely work off vibes unless I have a call.
There you go. I love that. So if there's one thing that you could leave our listeners with of just best advice for becoming an expat, enjoying the nice slow days and not having to be in the hustle culture, and then enjoying your weekends with people too, what would that be?
Get a spreadsheet. No, I'm kidding. I think it goes back to, are you running away from something or are you running towards something? And if you are able to identify, I'm looking for this kind of lifestyle, whether it is I'm moving to someplace like Lisbon where you're wanting that Southern European slow life, you're wanting more of that community feel, or you want to move to Vietnam and you want to have something that's completely different. Lean in with curiosity, lean in with humility, lean in with self-compassion, because it is going to be messy. And there are going to be moments where you are having that pint of ice cream all by yourself on the kitchen floor at 3 a.m., just questioning your whole life. And then 2 or 3 days later, maybe even the next day, you're like, this was the best decision I've ever made in my life. So ride the wave, be kind to yourself, and ensure that you are letting people into this journey, even if you're doing it solo. So when I moved over here, I was solo, and it was terrifying and liberating at the same time. And so allow those two things to be true at the same time, and allow space for both versus feeling as if you're a failure if you're scared, because it's scary. Just is.
That is fantastic advice, and thank you for sharing that, and thank you for saying, it is scary, and that's okay. If our listeners want to reach out to you and hear more about you, how can they do that?
The easiest way is if they want to find me on Instagram, at Maggie Gets Real, REAL. That's a therapeutic framework that I have, so it's kind of a play on words. You can DM me there, or you can send me an email, hello@maggiedickens.com, and I will get back to you within either 5 minutes or sometimes a couple of days. It really just depends on when I'm on my computer. But that is just the best way to get in touch with me for sure.
Well, thank you so much again for joining me today.
Oh, this was so much fun. We could talk forever, but I know we both have calls to get on to. So life, work, stiff.
I know. All the things.
All the things.
Hello, Child-Free Wealth listeners. We just had a wonderful conversation with Maggie Dickens. Now I am going to talk to Sibu Szymanowska. Sibu has come on the podcast a couple years ago, and we had a fantastic conversation. We really talked about a lot about her child-free journey then and how she lives life being a digital nomad. But today we're going to dive more into the digital nomad side of things and also learn more about the company that she runs, the Hybrid Tours, where you can go and travel the world as well. Sibu is a global citizen, entrepreneur, and advocate for intentional living. Having lived in 8 countries and explored over 100, she's built a life entirely on her own terms, free from societal expectations around children. She's the creator of Go Global with Sibu, where she shares practical tips, insights on moving abroad, and her experiences as a child-free traveler. She's also the co-founder of the Hybrid Tours, a socially conscious travel company that connects travelers with activists and refugee communities. With a background in economics, human rights, and sustainable travel, Sibu is passionate about helping others use their resources to design a new life, whether that's relocating overseas or funding more travels. Sibu, welcome back to the podcast today.
Thank you. It's so good to be back. I cannot believe it's been a few years since we last had our last podcast called Time Flies. But yeah, it's great to be back, and it's great to be back here with the child-free community.
It is so fun to have you back here and have another conversation. We were just chatting before we pressed record, and we were talking so much and having so much fun that we're going real. I was like, we got to start recording. Otherwise, we're going to run out of time here. So I'm so excited, though, today to have you here and share with our listeners your experience being a digital nomad. So I know your story about moving when you were 17, 18, and just starting your life as a digital nomad. But can you give our listeners a taste of what life is like for you and how you've been living life over the past years?
Yes, definitely. So I'm Sibu. I think of myself as a global citizen, but if you had to specifically ask, I think I'm Costa Rican, Polish, American, and exactly 20 years ago, back in 2005, I said to myself, okay, I've had enough. I need to pack up my bags and leave, and I promised myself that I would never move back. And so it's been 20 years, and I've managed it so far, and I've lived in multiple countries around the world. I've traveled to dozens of countries. I just hit 100 recently, and I basically, and over the last 5 years, I've been traveling full time, and I do this thanks to remote work, basically, and I've been sharing my tips, practical tips, what it's like to be a solo female traveler, and going to more off the beaten path destinations around the world and showing people that if I can do it, and again, we've said this before, I don't have a trust fund or anything like that. If I can do it on my own, so can you. And you all have access to laptops and internet and ways to make money online. So
yes. And I love that you decided, I've had enough of this. I'm never moving back. Was that something that was brewing inside of you for many years? Or did you just go, no, I'm going. I don't want to stay here anymore, and I don't want to come back? Was it a quick decision? Was it many years?
So obviously I was a child, but I think, and this is not something particularly nice to admit, but I think from the age of 5 or 6, I knew that I just didn't want to live in the same country And I know that's crazy to think, like, how can you be that young? And I remember clearly being that young and thinking, okay, the moment I'm old enough, I'm just gonna leave. And so, of course, 5, 6, that's tiny. I had to wait over a decade for that to happen. But I knew that once I left, I just didn't want to go back. And I told myself that the only reason I'd go back was to take care of my mother if she needed me to. That because family always is important to me. But that aside, I was like, nope, I'll figure out a way to make things happen abroad. And so far I have for the last 20 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's absolutely wild to me. And it's always fun to see on Instagram you share that you live out of 2 bags. Like, that's what you travel with. And to me is absolutely wild to have. Just tell me more about that, because you've been doing it for 20 years. Has it always been 2 bags? Like,
No. That was just only over the past 5 years when I decided to become fully nomadic. So I've lived in other countries, meaning that I had a base in other places. So I was in China for 5 years, in Germany for 4, in the UK for almost 2, in Poland for almost 2. So I've also had like actual living stints in different countries. But once the pandemic hit, I had the opportunity to start traveling full time, and I decided to take advantage of it. And that was back in summer 2020. So that's when I started traveling full time. I started off with so I left everything in storage. So I got rid of most of my stuff and I left it in a storage unit. And then I think I left things there for about 14, 15 months. And the funny thing is, like, once you don't see things, you actually don't miss them. So I remember going back to the storage unit and going through my stuff, and I was like, I don't remember most of these things. I genuinely did not miss any of them, because I think I remember missing one thing, a leather jacket. Like, that was one thing that I was like, oh, I wish I had my leather jacket on me. But that was it. And so it just made me realize how little we actually need. And I'm not saying this lifestyle's for everybody, definitely not, but just basically what I do is that I think about it. Like, are there any, to whomever's listening to this, are there any items that you constantly wear? Like, I know you might have like 10 pairs of shoes, but there's like 1 or 2 pairs of shoes that you're constantly going back to no matter what. Like that shirt, that t-shirt, that pair of pants. That's basically what living out of 2 bags is. So I just choose items that I know I'm going to wear constantly. And yes, I do look pretty boring in pictures because I'm always wearing the same stuff 24/7. But it's useful, it's minimalistic, and it just... Even if I wanted to go shopping, because it's not a matter of money, I don't have space. I literally don't have space, so I have to be really, really conscious about what I buy and what I take with me, because I literally have to carry it on my back.
And I think it's so fun to me to think about that. Like, there are plenty of backpacking trips and things like that, but you're doing it for a period of time. But to think about, like, this is what you're doing all the time, you're right, though. Now that you said, like, once you don't see, you don't miss it, and don't really think about most of that stuff. I guess that is so true. And I've really never thought about that as, yeah, when I'm gone, I don't miss half of my stuff. Anyway, you've taken, and now you're traveling and you're going different places. I know you also house sit too. And that's one way that you can travel to all these different locations. Can you tell us more about that and what that looks like for you?
Yeah, so basically, there are so many platforms that allow you to travel for free or at a low cost. One of my favorite ones, and I actually happen to be, if you're listening to this, I'm here in Portugal, where I'm actually house sitting. So I'm right in the outskirts of Lisbon, and I'm less than a 10-minute walk from the beach. So I'm just here chilling, taking care of 3 cats, and that basically means that maybe 30 minutes of my day is required every day. Clean their litter box and feed them throughout the day, and then that's it. I'm free to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And so I've been doing this. I also started house sitting 5 years ago, and so I take advantage of different house sits and destinations around the world. So I've house sat in LA, New York, London, Dubai, Kuala Lumpur. I'm here in Lisbon, Berlin. I pick cities because I don't drive, so obviously I want to be in places where it's more accessible by public transportation. But if you can drive, then you can just rent a car and stay in a village in the middle of nowhere in Greece, for example. The opportunities are endless, and this is, for me, a great way to save money, but also it's a great way to see life from a local perspective. So I'm not staying in a touristy part of town. I'm literally staying in someone's home where they live, and so I get to see what people are like. I do grocery shopping. I do the things anybody else would in their home, except I'm doing it in someone else's home.
And I love that, because one, you have all the things that you probably need being in somebody else's house. So having 2 backpacks is a lot easier than the idea of being in hotels all the time. And I love the focus that you have on making sure you're doing things that are local, not really falling into the tourist traps and just living your life in that, because there's such a difference between going to things that are very touristy versus going to the things that locals do. Like, I think anybody can appreciate that, people will come visit and there'll be the tourist things that you do and things that you actually do day to day. And I just love your perspective of, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the things that are more day-to-day representative of what it is like local life and being there where you can walk to the beach. Sounds like such a fun time to be able to walk 10 minutes to the beach in Portugal.
It does. It is amazing. However, I do have a big privilege on my hands, which is time, right? So obviously I am free to live like a local because I work remotely. I know that if people only have 2-3 weeks off every year, they want to stay somewhere more touristy and make the most of their time. And I obviously completely respect that. But for me, given my lifestyle, I have more flexibility, more freedom to just do things more of the local way. If I were only in Lisbon for 3 days, of course I wouldn't want to stay in the outskirts of Lisbon. I'd want to stay right in the city center where everything's happening so I can go around. However, the cool thing about house sitting is that you can do it for 2 nights or you can do it for 3 months. Like, there's all types of house sits all around the world, and you can just filter according to the length that you're willing to do it.
What do you usually do it for? Do you do the 2 nights or 2 months?
It depends. It really depends. It depends on my schedule. So right now I'm obviously looking for longer house sits because I have more time here. But let's say I think I was in LA earlier this year, and I wanted to meet up with my brother. So he flew into LA from San Francisco, and I got us a 4-day house sit. So we could just hang out in LA for 4 days but not pay for accommodation, and the dates worked perfectly. So he flew in, we had accommodation for free right by the beach for 4 days. And that was it. And it was a 4-day house sit. And then he flew back home and I went back to my dad because my dad lives in San Diego. And the dates fit perfectly. So if you're looking for a weekend getaway, that's also a great way to do it. If you're listening to this and you have, this is child-free wealth. So I don't know how many people here are still living with roommates. But if you live in a big city like New York and you have roommates, house sitting is a great way to just take a break and just get, like, I've stayed in the Upper East Side in New York over Thanksgiving, which costs a fortune, through house sitting. And if I had roommates, that's something I definitely want to do all the time, so I can just take a break and be on my own. But again, it doesn't have to be just because you have roommates. For me, it's a local way of living. I save on rent. I find house sitting better than Airbnbs because they're fully equipped. If I were to come here for 3 days, obviously I'm not going to be in. I'm just going to be out all day. But because I work remotely, I want to have places that are truly set up for living. And unfortunately, most Airbnbs are not up to my standard. Maybe like apartment rentals are, but not all the time too. So for me, the platform that I use is called Trusted House Sitters. I can share with you a discount link that I have that Brie can share with you. But yes, I feel like this is, for me at least, this is the way to go.
Yeah. I was going to ask you the platform that you used because I think people like the idea of it, but sometimes they go, how do I actually do that and begin on there? So when you sign up for Trusted House Sitters, what's that process look like for you as a traveler to get signed up for it?
So you have to pay a membership fee, which is anywhere between $100 and $200 per year, and you pay it back immediately. Like, you get your money's worth immediately. All you have to do is house it for a day or two. Let's say New York, and you get an apartment for 2 days. Bam, you already got your money back. Think about how much you'd be spending getting an Airbnb, because it's not a hotel, right? Like, you're getting an actual apartment. If you got an apartment of that same worth on Airbnb, how much would that be? You just sign up for the platform and you're able to use it for a whole year, 365 days, and you can house it as many times as you want. I house it solo, but sometimes I'll have friends join me. I even had my ex-boyfriend join me. My mom house sat with me once. I've had friends join me. So all you have to do is add them to the platform. And best part is that if you have a family, you can actually add your family to it too. So you can just say that you're house sitting with your partner and a kid too. I think 3 kids is the absolute limit. After that, I think it'd be pushing it. But yeah, there's places out there who are completely open to having families house it for them. And it could be a great way for you to just get away and not spend on accommodation and do things the local way. So if you have a family and you see this beautiful house sit somewhere in the countryside in Italy, you can take your kids for a whole week, like, why not? And all you need to do is rent a car and you have accommodation covered. And some of these places are, they're stunning, like pools and vineyard views and all these different things. I don't know. It's by far the best platform out there, at least for me as a traveler. It's completely changed my life, and I would highly, highly recommend it to people. I can share a couple more resources with you later. I even have links, full blog articles with Q&As on how to get started, different questions that people ask me all the time. Is it safe? What about this? Is it difficult to find to get reviews? All that stuff, I cover it all in my blog articles, basically.
Yeah, I love that because I think it's such a helpful way. And, you know, I have looked at trusted house sitters and I've never actually done it because I always have this idea in my head of I have to be there for a while. But I love to hear that you're like, no, you can go there for a couple of days and that's totally fine to just go do these things. And I didn't even think about that. Like the idea of, yeah, if I was still living with roommates, maybe even myself wanting to do a staycation.
100%. And most of the people on the platform are pretty well off. I'm not gonna lie. Even if you're in the same city. So once I did a house sit in Costa Rica with my mom, and my mom's from San Jose. And I mean, we live in this, very average middle class neighborhood. And there was a house sit that popped up over New Year's that was in this really, really fancy part of town. And I was like, do you want to go? My mom was like, F it, why not? And so we just drove there, which was like a 30-minute drive. And we stayed in this beautiful villa with like pool and this and that. And it was great because that's normally something that we wouldn't get a chance to do. And it was exactly what you said, a staycation. But with house sitting, and this is, I think, the question people ask me the most, do I have to stay indoors the whole time with the pets? No. You don't. The listing clearly says what's expected of you. If it's a dog with a small bladder and it says you have to take it out every 4 hours and you want to go sightseeing, then obviously that's not going to fit your schedule. If you're working remotely like myself, then by all means go for it because you're going to be indoors most of the time working. If you want to go sightseeing most of the time, then you pick a house sit with a cat that only requires you to feed it in the morning and in the evening. And so you choose whichever listing works best for you. And there are also listings that don't have any pets at all. They're rare, but they're there, and it's a filter, like no pets. And so maybe you just go and pick up the mail. Once I stayed in Berlin for 3 weeks picking up mail. Literally, that was all I was doing. I had to pick up the mail, take a picture, open it, take a picture of it, and send it because she was expecting really important mail. And she trusted me to look at her mail, and that's it. And I took screenshots. It took me, 2 minutes every day? Nothing. Sometimes you just have to water plants. And in other cases, people feel safer knowing that there's someone staying at home so nobody breaks in. Instead of having like an alarm system set up, because those are not necessarily always trustworthy. So there are a million reasons why people use house sitting. And again, I would highly, highly recommend it. And it's a great way to see the world.
Yeah, I am so fascinated with that and I love it. And we'll make sure to put the resources in the show notes as well so everybody can go ahead and check that out. When you're going from house to house and doing this and being a digital nomad, the concept of home can be quite fluid. How do you define home?
I mean, as I'm sure you could tell by my earlier story about wanting to leave, home is just like such an abstract concept to me because home can be people, home can be feelings, home can be food. I don't feel like anything feels like home, but for me, I make a conscious effort to stay in touch with absolutely everybody. I regularly have phone calls during the week with my closest friends. I don't know, I cook all the stuff that I want to cook. I'm here in Portugal, for example, and I'm making a conscious effort to meet up with really close friends here, so it depends. So sometimes I might just choose a destination because it's new and I know nothing about it and I want to go explore and I don't know anybody there and I don't know anything about it. And other times, like now, I'm craving a little bit more comfort and Portugal is one of my favorite countries. So I was like, okay, let's go to Portugal, spend a couple of weeks there. I have a few really close friends here, so I'll spend some time with them as well. And so it just really depends on what I'm craving at the moment. But I knew now that I was specifically craving comfort and familiar, loving faces, and so that's why I'm here, basically.
Yeah, I like that, and I like how you say, because to me, home is people. It's not a location, too, and so it's always fun for me to hear what is everybody's definition, because for some people it is a specific location. Some people it's other people that they have in their life or food. I've never heard the food answer before, but I really like that. Because I didn't think about how comforting that can be and just feeling like, okay, this feels good to have a specific food or type of cuisine all the time. And that's so fun. So fun.
Food is a big one, but something I did want to add is the beauty of working remotely is that I also get to spend a lot of time with my family, which is something that people really take for granted and they don't even think about. Let's say you have an office job and you get, if you're lucky, 4 weeks off every year. Let's be real, you're not going to spend all 4 weeks off with your parents. You're not. Like, maybe you'll see one of them, or like you'll try to balance things out, but at the most you'll see your parents once a year. That's if you don't live close to them. If you do live close to them, that's a whole different story, but most of us don't. And my parents are divorced, so they live in like completely different parts of the world. So imagine if I had an office job, like I'd spend years without seeing either one of my parents because I had to choose. I couldn't afford to see both in 1 year, and I also didn't have the time to see both. Now, earlier this year, I spent a few weeks with my dad. Like, that's priceless to me, you know? And then last year, I think I spent like 2 months with my mom just hanging out, and she works from home as well. So it just, for me at least, working remotely has also changed my relationships. The people that I love, I see them way more often now than I did back when I had a typical 9 to 5.
Yeah, and that really is a good point. Of like, if you're remote, you can be at those places and see people a lot more because, yeah, you might have to work during the day, but chances are they're going to also have to work during the day. But then you get time at night to spend with them versus if you're working an office job somewhere else or any sort of other job where you have to be in person in a location and then pick where you're going to be. So I love the ability of remote work to allow us more things that we want to do and more time with people that we really care about. And I think I have a big vendetta against this whole return to office thing.
Oh my God, don't get me started. Oh, I hate it. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Thankfully, we do not, as a company, do any sort of in-person, like we don't have an office to go to when we're all over. But yes.
CFP, that's the way to go.
Yes, CFP and child-free, because we're very non-traditional.
Yes.
So awesome. Well, I want to make sure that we talk about your tour company that you run, the hybrid tours, because what I think what you're doing is just so fantastic, and you have such a emphasis on local guides. But I want you to tell everybody what is the hybrid tours, what you do, how they can be a part of it too, and join the different things. So take it away.
Sure. So basically, as I'm sure you've heard, I've traveled extensively around the world, and I realized that there were certain experiences that I was missing, and I didn't even know what I was missing because I'd never experienced it before. And then before the pandemic, with my now co-founder, she created this trip in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and we traveled in a way that I'd never traveled before. So basically, yeah, sure, we were sightseeing, but what made it so interesting is that we were also meeting with war survivors, genocide survivors, with activists. And so it wasn't that we were just learning about what happened in Bosnia and Herzegovina in the 90s, because I mean, you can hear third-person accounts of it, you know, from a random guy. No, we were actively meeting with people who had lived through that part of history. And that was mind-blowing to me because, let's be real, I don't know how many guides you've encountered in your life. I know I've taken a million walking tours throughout my life, and I don't remember most of the details. I don't remember, okay, this was founded in 1809. I'm not going to remember that. What I do remember are the stories and each destination that I go to. And so we wanted to create a way in which people could travel through storytelling. And that's basically how it was born. However, we all know what happened in 2020, so we had to give it a bit of a pause. And then officially in 2022, we started running tours in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and now we've expanded to 7 countries. So we are operating in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Jordan, Pakistan, Armenia, Georgia, and South Korea. And so we specifically picked these places because these are places that have a lot of stories to tell, but are not, I know South Korea is probably the most popular one out of all of them, but many of these places have stories that most people don't even think about. So, okay, we all know about South and North Korea, but why did they even split up in the first place? Well, what if I told you that we actually meet up with activists and potentially even with North Korean refugees who can tell you about their side of the story? You know, these are priceless things. And so it's basically, again, there's sightseeing involved, but there's also like storytelling weaved into it. And so not only are we bringing these stories to life and history to life, but we're also supporting these different groups. So of course, if we're supporting a group of refugees in Jordan, for example, not only are we getting to learn from them, but we're also getting to support them financially by hiring them as the hybrid tours. So it's been life-changing, to be honest, and I absolutely love the work that we're doing. And for me to see a traveler come on our trips, like, I would say that we normally attract people. I'm not saying that you need to be super knowledgeable about the world, but I think curiosity is like the number one thing that I think would be best if you wanted to like fit into one of our tours. So it's funny to see how people's perception of a place is from day one, and then you can see it being transformed over the course of a tour. And I absolutely love that. So for example, in Jordan, Jordan is a Muslim majority country, but there are also Christians and Protestants, and so we actually have a meal one day with the Christian families, and you actually get to sit down with them and talk to them about what it's like being the minority in the country, because many people falsely believe that if you belong to another religion that you're going to be persecuted. You're not. And so we're showing you here how it's really like. We meet with different refugees so you can see what life is really like for them in Jordan, because Jordan is actually one of the places that takes in the most refugees in the whole of the area, but we don't hear about this on mainstream media. What else? We also meet up with this community of women, of local women, and what they do, they set up this whole institution because sources of income are really, really scarce in the rural areas. And so they've set up this whole thing where you can engage in different workshops and you can cook with them. And so we go and spend the afternoon with them so you can learn more about the things that they're doing. And so it's, again, sightseeing, because we hit all the different spots in Jordan, for example, that people love, but it's also traveling through a very, very different perspective and getting to hear firsthand from people on the ground what life is really like. And so that's why we call it the hybrid tours, because it's a mix of, the typical sightseeing that we're used to, but also humanitarianism, human rights, being a socially conscious traveler, raising awareness, and also supporting local communities on the ground.
Yeah, it's fun because when you talk about all the countries that you're in, none of the countries are ones that I would immediately go, like, that's where I want to go as my first thought. And then I look more at it and I see the things that you're sharing and I go, actually, that does sound fun. That does sound fun to go there and learn about that and do all those things. But they're not the countries that people usually rattle off when you say like, hey, oh, you're going on vacation. Where are you going? They're not necessarily the top of mind, quick, like, let's go there for a week or so. Things, they're different. And I love that how you use the hybrid tours and use that name specifically as a blend of doing the different things, but also really being involved in the focus on activism and humanitarianism. Being in that, I think it's incredibly important for not only personal growth, but also if we want to be better as a society and as global citizens, seeing those things and having those stories and understanding them can make us more empathetic.
100%. Yes. Yeah, it's amazing. And so again, the way we impact people on the ground, but also the journey that travelers go through and the way they're, broadening their mind and they learn about all these different topics. It's really, really a life-changing experience. And because of course our groups are small, so whenever people think of tours, they think, oh my God, I'm going to be herded in a bus with other 40, 50 people being herded from one place to the next. We don't do that. Our groups are usually comprised of up to, and that's pushing it, 15. It's normally around 10. So it's a very intimate setting where you actually get to interact with everybody that you meet. You learn everybody's name on the tour. You make friends with other like-minded travelers. So it's a really cool way of traveling. And I'm not saying it is the way that you should travel every single time, but it is a way to travel, and a way to travel that I think everybody should experience at least once in their lifetimes. And when it comes to not so touristy destinations, the way I see the world, I know everybody's dying to go to Paris, and Greece, which is fine, but they've already reached their peak of over tourism. Like, if you go now or if you go in 5 years, it's not going to make a difference. It's already extremely touristy. So my thought is, why not prioritize places that are going to be touristy one day in the future, but are not yet, so you can actually see them at their rawest. And I've done that with so many different destinations around the world. I remember more than 10 years ago, Croatia. I was going to Croatia and people were like, ew, why would you go to Croatia? There's nothing to do there. Now everybody and their grandmother wants to go to Croatia, Uzbekistan now is super popular. Colombia, for example. There's all these destinations that 10 years ago, nobody wanted to step foot in, and now everybody wants to go. So I think places will become touristy. Like, more and more places will become touristy. So my personal perspective is get to the places that are not quite there yet and beat the crowds, because the other ones have already been, they've reached their peak, basically.
I like that perspective of going to those places. Yeah, Croatia, I remember when I was in Norway, somebody was like, I'm going to Croatia for the weekend. And I was like, I hadn't thought about going there. I also grew up in a very homozygous area. Everybody looked like me. Everybody was very conservative, like all these things. And so I didn't have a lot of that experience and exposure to things, but I've really enjoyed listening to and following you and seeing all the different things of other places you can go, and to go all those places. What are some tips for people who are like, hey, I am just starting to learn, but I really want to go out and try these other places? What do you suggest to start with?
First of all, it depends, but I know having the confidence to go out into the world is probably the hardest thing out there. And I think a lot of us are predisposed to think, okay, I have to wait for a friend, a partner, a family member, my sibling, someone to join us. And if there's anything I've realized is that you shouldn't wait around for anybody to make travel happen, or anything happen for that matter. Sometimes my friends know that, like, they can just text me and be like, Sibu, where are you? And they're more than welcome to join, but most of them don't. And I know a lot of people. That's a reality. If I were sitting around waiting for people to join me, I basically wouldn't go anywhere. So I think, I don't know, I feel like there's this misconception of like that being alone is like a bad thing, but it's not, you know, you get to know so much about yourself. So personally, if I had to gain the confidence to start doing things on my own, I would start small. It's the little things, you know, go out, take yourself out for dinner. Solo, that can be really daunting for some people. Go take yourself out to the movies, do solo date, concert, bar. I've never been to a concert on my own, by the way. That's like actually on my list. I went to an amusement park this year on my own, which was a big one, because imagine going to an amusement park on your own. So that was like a big goal for me. But even after there's certain things that even I haven't done on my own. So start small. So start in your city, then join a little walking tour if there happens to be one. Then what's the next step you can take? Do a day trip to another city nearby, or do a weekend trip somewhere. And then eventually you can start going bigger and bigger. I think when we're on social media, I think it's so easy for us to see the end result. Like, okay, there's Sibu going off on her own in the middle of nowhere in Mauritania, and that looks really, really, really fucking cool, but took a long time for me to have the guts to say, okay, I'm just gonna travel alone to Mauritania. Like, there's so many steps and so many years of, you know, making mistakes and being on my own that I had to learn through. So I think, again, just going for it, starting small, going for it. And again, I think joining groups is a great way to take the confidence to put yourself out there. Another tip for me, visit people. Do you have friends abroad? Do you have family abroad? I'm sure there's plenty of pending invitations of people. Hey, come visit me, come stay with me. Even if you cannot stay with them, at least you would, if somebody says, come visit me in Copenhagen, maybe you cannot stay with them, but at least you know someone in Copenhagen. You can meet up with them. They can give you tips. So take advantage of all those different people that are around you that might have invited you, and join whenever your immediate circle doesn't want to join trips. It's really a great way to travel, to meet new people, to make new friends, and to see the world in like a safe environment, because someone else is going to be taking care of you.
I love that. And I remember last time that we talked, you had that same conversation of going and visiting people, because you never know when they're going to not be there anymore,
100%.
Whether they move or just go somewhere else. And I have taken that advice to heart for sure over these past couple of years. But then also, I told you before we were recording this, we're about to do a big move. And there are some people who have said like, oh, I want to visit you. I want to visit you. And I went and called them and I said, okay, you keep saying that you want to visit me. This is the day we're leaving. Either you get here or stop telling me that, because it's been a couple years now. And so there are plane tickets booked and I will have guests here.
Okay, great. See, but people are taking you seriously. I remember when the last time I lived somewhere, because obviously I've been remote for a few years, the last time I lived somewhere was in Berlin, and when I was moving out, oh, but I didn't get a chance to visit you. I was in Berlin for 4 years, and we have plenty of room for guests, like, and no, okay, yes, I had a lot of people come, but also a lot of people who didn't, and I was like, the doors of my home were open to you for 4 years, and you didn't take advantage of it. I don't know what else to say. I think we just take people and time for granted.
Yeah, that's so true, because we always think that we have so much more time than we do. And
100%.
Like, you never know. Take the chances while you have them, because you don't know if you're going to have that chance tomorrow, or if you're going to be even physically capable of doing those things anymore too. That's something people always forget. So how do you work on maintaining some of those friendships and relationships with people who are all across the world when, before when you were in Berlin, they could come visit you and some of them just chose not to. But now that you're more nomadic and you're going to different places, how do you still maintain all those friendships without having one place for them to come visit you specifically?
I know. It's a hard one. But the funny thing is that it's never been this easy because I left in 2005. Now think about it. We had emails. That's it. And potentially Skype. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have WhatsApp. We didn't have voice notes. We didn't have video calls. We didn't have all the things that we do today. And so back then there was a time. And so I moved in 2005 to China and I was there for 7 years. Now I went through all the firewalls where Facebook was banned, Skype was banned, everything was banned. Imagine not speaking to your own mother for months because you have no way of getting a hold of each other. Like, times were rough. It was really rough. So for me to go from that to this, what we have right now, where I can easily just take a picture of a selfie and be like, hey, I'm here. It's been life-changing and it's made a hell of a lot easier. However, there's also intention involved. Like, if I want to stay in touch with people, I set up calls. I basically set up video calls with my friends. Some of them maybe once a month, maybe every few months. Sometimes it's a little harder. Others I speak to every single week. Others we might just be sending voice notes to each other all the time. But I think that also social media has come to play a really big role because even if we're not constantly talking, I can see people's stories, I can see what they're up to, and I can see that they're doing well, and I can keep up with their lives in a very casual way. Because they're just documenting their life and I get to be a part of it, even if it's on the other side of the screen. So I feel like it's hard. But I think being intentional is one thing, and two, technology has never been this good. So I know what it's like to truly struggle. And I mean, for me, it wasn't even that bad. People had to send like letters back in the day. I was never at the letter point. I was at the sending emails point. But we've come a long way in the last 20 years.
And I like how you point that out too, because it's so easy for people to forget that picking up the phone and sending a voice note. I'm a big fan of voice notes.
Me too.
I make them a personal podcast to my friends.
Same here. Oh my God. Same here.
I'm like, do you want 5 minutes of me just talking at you? You're going to get it.
Basically, 100%, yeah. The worst one, oh my God. I don't know if she'll listen to this or not. I love her to pieces. But I hate it when people send them and they're so long. I'm like, give me time to like break them down. Once a friend of mine sent a 28-minute voice note. I wanted to kill her. And sometimes things are glitchy. So like maybe I'm listening to the voice note and it'll go back and I'm like, no, that was a nightmare. So I love everybody, but personal recommendation, cut them down. Don't make them 28 minutes long. I think 5 is max a good amount.
Hey, Child Free Wealth listeners, it's Bree. If you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, be sure to get on it, where each week we send out information regarding what's going on in the world of child-free life and finances. You can sign up by finding the link in our description. Yeah, because you can listen to it. I like now that they transcribe them too. So sometimes if I need to read them real quick,
yeah,
that's my go-to. But it is so easy to stay connected with people. We just have to make a point to do it because otherwise you can easily get disconnected. And it was funny. A lot of my friends and I will use Snapchat because we grew up with it and we had it forever. And so we'll still do it because we can send pictures easily. Like sometimes there's a picture I want to send to somebody, but it's not worth saving storage on my phone. And somebody else said, well, you use Snapchat? Like, why do you do that? Because I send so many pictures of different things and parts of my day to other people to just stay connected with them, even though I might not see them for months or even years at a time. But we can still send different things and show people our lives and
100%.
have conversations
Yeah.
with that. That's super fun for me. I want to make sure that I'm respectful of your time here, but just one last thing. If you had any sort of like super fun experience that you're kind of thinking over the past few years, or like, this is one thing that I really have learned and encompassed and I want to share with other people, what would that be?
And I know this is going to come across as really potentially cringy, but I mean, I think it's the motto that I've lived my life by. Just take the plunge and do it. because I feel like a lot of the things that I've done throughout life, it's more like I don't want to sit back in my deathbed and think, what if? I think that's the biggest thing. And for me, I mean, yes, we live in a materialistic world where everybody's competing to see who spends more, who's got the biggest house, the best car, the best bag. But the reality is that when I'm on my deathbed, I'm not going to think about all the fancy things that I bought to try to impress others. Again, impress others. It's not even like I'm trying to impress myself. It's more like, what are the experiences that I'm going to take with me? And so take the plunge, go for things. And I think there's no age limit to it too. I mean, if you're in your 50s and you want to move abroad, like, why not do it, And I think what a lot of people are scared of is doing it and thinking that they're gonna regret it or they're not gonna enjoy it. Who said that things were set in stone? Like, if I've been doing this for more than 5 years, if I were to get tired tomorrow and say, you know what, I'm done with this lifestyle, I'm just gonna pack up my bags, move somewhere, sign a lease somewhere, get a 9 to 5 and just stay there for the rest of my life, I can do that. I can change my mind anytime I want. And so if you're listening to this, go for it. And I feel like something that I share a lot on my social media is, taking advantage of opportunities. There's PhDs, master's degrees abroad. You can take a job abroad. You can go volunteer abroad. And I know that I keep saying abroad because it's what my life has been mostly like, but I feel like going abroad for an extended period of time can be a life-changing thing. And there's nothing stopping you. And there's so many resources out there, whether you have a family or not. It's definitely 100% possible. You just got to set your mind to it and do it, and set yourself a goal. Like, what is something that you would love to do in the upcoming 5 or 10 years? Set a goal and do it. Because again, you were talking about getting older and maybe not being able-bodied, but what if something happens and we're not here anymore? Or you wait until retirement and then after 1 year after retirement, you pass away, something happens. Nothing, absolutely nothing is guaranteed. And I think I'm gonna quote Sex and the City, but there's this episode called Shoulda, Coulda, Woulda. Like, no, I don't want to live my life by those terms. Like, I don't want to say what if. Like, I'm doing it, and I'm making mistakes along the way, and that's it. And despite what people might think, I swear and I promise you, it doesn't ruin your career. If you know how to phrase it properly, if anything, it's going to give you a really, really good edge on your portfolio or on your CV, and you're going to have a lot of lore, and you're going to stand out in applications no matter where you go. So it will not destroy your career, I promise. You just got to know how to sell yourself right.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for everything that you have shared with us today. If people want to follow along with your life and then also the hybrid tours, how can they keep up to date with you?
Yes, of course. So thank you once again for having me, and I'm hoping I'll inspire 1 or 2 people out there to go see the world. If you want to find me on social media, I'm Go Global with Sibu, S-I-B-U, and you can find me on all social media platforms. And for the hybrid tours, you can go to our website or just follow us on social media as the hybrid tours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again for joining me today.
Thank you, and I'll see you soon. Who knows? Thank you once again, Brie.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a rating or review. We'd love to keep the conversation going. Please let us know your thoughts wherever comments are available, or email us at media@childfreewealth.com. To stay up to date, find and follow Child Free Wealth on social media. If you're interested in working with us, learn more by visiting our website, childfreewealth.com. We'll see you next time.